Hello and welcome, my battle slugs. How you doing this wonderful day? It's SJB here, and we're back with another Bloons Tower Defense 6 video. Today, we're going to be ranking every single tower in the game. So what I want you to do is just take a quick look at all of the towers. We've got the magic monkeys on the top. We've got the primary monkeys right here. We've got the military monkeys, jumbled a little bit, right here. And last but not least, we've got the support monkeys at the bottom. In total, there are 22 towers in this game. That is pretty ridiculous. How often do you use these guys? Do you feel like you use them all the same? Because I know that I don't. But we have to understand how we're going to rank these guys. We're going to be ranking them on the total usability of that tower. One upgrade path will not make or break our tower. But what we want to talk about is how usable they are, how efficient they are, how cost-effective they are for their purpose. You have to keep in mind the lack of camo detection or the lack of weaknesses or the strengths that it has. Everything combined together, we're going to rank that tower. I'm going to explain why I ranked it that way. So before we start our tier list, if you guys want to press that like button for me and subscribe, that would be absolutely fantastic. I would really appreciate that, and I would love you guys ever so much more. Thank you so much. I also want to keep in mind, I want you guys to keep in mind that this is my opinion, so if you don't agree with me, that is totally fine. I completely respect your guys' opinion, your guys' thoughts. Everybody has a different way that they play the game and a different play style. So if you do disagree, just leave a comment below and let me know what your thoughts are. And, if other people agree, well, everybody's going to like those comments and everybody's going to be happy with each other. So to start you guys off, I really did not want to make an F tier list for Bloons Tower Defense 6 towers. I feel like there is no terrible tower in this game. When you just kind of look through, there's no tower where you're just like, I can't use that guy ever. And I even struggled to put anything in my D tier list because, again, there's no terrible towers in BTD6. But I tried my best to think about what the worst tower in the game is for me, and right now, it's got to be the Glue Gunner. So let's talk about this guy real quick here. So I don't have time to go over every single upgrade for every single tower, but I'm just going to touch on the main things. Mainly the first third tier upgrades and the main fifth tier upgrades, because those are really important, and anything kind of in between there. Starting off, we've got the Bloon Dissolver, the Glue Hose, and the Moab Glue. All three of these guys are okay, and only have a few uses for them. These two don't really have very much going on, and the Moab Glue can of course hit Moabs, but that's kind of the only thing he can do. Alright, all of those end up making him kind of just unhelpful in most situations. When you finally jump up, the Bloon Solver is going to be your best 5th tier tower for glue. The Glue Storm is going to be almost useless, and the Super Glue is going to be 100% the biggest waste of money you've ever used in your entire life. Do not use this guy, he is freaking bad, alright? Trust me on that, he is bad. Don't use him. So, Glue Gunners have a really hard time getting started in here. They have kind of a weird mid-game to use, and then their 5th tiers are just kind of bad. And that's why Glue ends up being the worst tower on my list today. My main issue with the cannons is that they have kind of a lot of weaknesses. Blacks, zebras, no camo detection. That's kind of a big deal here when dealing with a lot of those types of balloons that are coming out. On top of that, there aren't that many good upgrades. If you just kind of look here, both of these, and both of these really aren't something we're going for. Even when we get to the 3rd tier upgrades, it's like we're usually not trying to get these guys. Nobody really wants the really big bombs. Nobody wants the cluster bombs. Mob Maulers, you might want a couple of those guys. But usually, you don't want a bunch of them unless you have a Striker Jones or something weird combo. You do want the 4th tier, you do want the 4th tier, and again, if you're spamming Mob Maulers, I guess that's okay too, if you do it right. So, there's only a couple upgrades that are even possibly useful as a cannon. Even when I finally get to the 5th tier upgrades for my cannons, I find them to be okay. I like them. I think they're cool, but they're hard to use, you know? I mean, especially for the amount of money we're spending on these guys. The Bloon Crush, his whole point is that any Moab class balloon is going to get absolutely demolished. As long as you have cam detection, everything up to a bad is demolished, but really weak against bad. This guy's amazing against the bad balloon, but really kind of terrible against everything else. The Bomb Blitz is kind of good against balloons, but, like, what else are you going to do with this guy, man? I mean, he's just weird to use and not all that great. So again, to reiterate, I have to say that I am talking these guys down because they are on the lowest tier part of my list. Not everything I say is, well, you never want to use this guy. He's so bad, you should never use them. That's not true. There's still towers in this game, and you should still use them sometimes. But as a totality of that towerism, all right, you have to keep all those things in mind about all those useless upgrades kind of in between all the nooks and crannies of the tower, of the upgrades that you do use. And that being said, let's talk about our Buccaneers here. So the Buccaneers are actually pretty good as a low-tier tower. A lot of these guys are pretty decent. Destroyer's pretty good. You got the cannon ship, who's pretty good. And then the Merchantman, I don't really want to talk about much because I don't think he's useful, because most of the time we're going banana farms. Unless you're spamming 20 Merchantmen, or favorite trades, or spamming them all with a trade empire. All of those I'm just going to not talk about because they're really difficult to use. So we're going to focus on the other two upgrades. I find that the Destroyer's okay, the Aircraft Carrier's okay, and the Carrier Flagship is okay. All of them are okay. They can do pops. They can do damage. Out of all of the upgrades in their entirety, the Carrier Flagship is definitely the top tier of the Buccaneer. Once you get past a cannon ship, the monkey power to the pirate lord are kind of worthless, to be honest. Like, they're really not doing much for us. Almost at all. So, I'm also just going to get rid of that guy. And when you leave that with a Buccaneer that's got to be put in a specific spot on water that has to be alchemized to be useful as a low tier, you end up with very little actual sustenance to a Buccaneer right now. And that's why he's still got to be in my C tier. I actually want to start with Ice Towers backwards, because I feel like if you understand the 5th tiers, you'll understand the upgrades prior to them and why I am still leaving them in my C tier. When you look at these guys, all 3 of them, which one would you think is the best? I would vote Icicle Impale. And even if you do get an Icicle Impale, I still feel like he's outclassed by a lot of other towers. You still need a primary mentoring village underneath him. You still need to give him cam detection. You still need to somehow give him that lead popping power to pop DDTs. He's got too many weaknesses, and all the other guys are just kind of hard to use. So when you got that, it's like, well, all the 5th tier towers are bad. All right, I'm just going to say it. They're all pretty bad. So we're stuck with the lower tier towers. And until you get a 3rd tier, they're again pretty okay. They're not terrible, but they're difficult to use, and they can hurt your other popping power of your other towers. So I could almost put this guy in D tier if I want to, but I'm going to leave him in C tier because he does have some pretty sick, nasty 3rd tiers here. Ice Shards and Impalement is pretty cool, alright? You're going to be exploding lots of balloons. The Arctic Wind is going to slow down all balloons around him, and if you get a snowstorm, it's a huge range with a nice ability here. And the Cryo Cannon and the Icicles are seriously some of the best balloon popping power middle-range towers in the game. So these are nice, but as a totality, I still find him kind of hard to use and aren't that great. All right, let's talk Druids here, guys. This is the next one on my tier list, still down in the C's. This guy's rough. This guy's real rough. Nothing great, and actually pretty bad. You know, Druid of the Wrath here, pretty bad. When you get up to the 4th tier, too expensive. You gotta build a bunch of low-tier farms to make this guy worthwhile. What? That's weird. And Pop Blust. Okay, that's only good if you're getting an Oban, a bunch of them, and a bunch of Alchemists. It's like a very one-sided, one way to win the game kind of situation. If you're not doing all of that, the Pop Blust by himself is actually really bad. So, finding ways to use the Druids is really difficult. Just really, really, really difficult, and that's why he's got to be in my C tier. Once you get up to the 5th tier, I honestly love the look of him. I will say, you got the power of the sky, the power of the earth, and I guess the power of fire, or maybe rage, or whatever. That's pretty cool, all right? I love the look of them. I like the idea of them, but in total usefulness, it's kind of weird. This guy costs over 100 grand. That's too expensive. This guy doesn't really do much in the late game. That's kind of bad. And this guy's actually probably the best 5th tier out of all of them. Avatar of Wrath, if you get this guy going, the more balloons on the screen, the more he's going to do. So that means big, chunky rounds. It's awesome to have this guy around. And if you buff him, he is pretty powerful. I find this to be very similar to the Druid. 3rd tier, not good. 3rd tier, no, I don't want you. And Double Gun, okay, that's an okay 3rd tier upgrade. But still hard to use because you got to get straight lines to shoot down. So, like, actually using the 3rd tiers here is just not very useful. Once you jump up to 4th tier, it's just like, okay, that's all right. All right, Overclock, we can use that, I guess, and Balloon Trap. Okay, we could use that a little bit, even though we're outclassed a little bit by Rubber to Gold. Okay, all these are okay towers here. And that's why we're just chilling in C, you know? We're not doing anything higher than that. I will say Citric Paragon is one of those towers that I think a lot of people overlook as a really awesome addition to your team. If you're getting this guy, make sure you get Deconstruction, though. Otherwise, it's going to be worthless. Ultra Boost, 100k. What do we do with that crap? Nothing. Extra large trap. All right. That one's actually kind of cool. But the problem with him is that he can't pop a bad balloon at all, and he's a little bit on the random side. Is he going to throw the balloon trap at the wrong spot or something like that? That might cause some major issues for us. So we have to be careful with the balloon trap here. And when you just add that all up together here, I don't think he's terrible. I just don't think he's all that useful. All right, the last tower in our C tier list down here. We've got the Super Monkeys. So the problem with Super Monkeys is not that they're bad whatsoever. It's just that they're so expensive. There's so much money invested in these guys. And they're okay for the money you're spending, but definitely not good for the money you're spending. If we're talking about real old-fashioned efficiency, almost none of these guys are efficient for their popping power. Let's be just straight about that. If you build 2 or 3 different towers combined together to use their strengths, you're going to do a better job than relying on these guys in their whole. But the idea is that this guy's supposed to be good against balloons, this guy's supposed to be good against mobs, and this guy's supposed to be good against kind of everything. It ends up being not that way almost at all, and ends up being really goofy, and I don't know, they're just weird. When you finally jump up to the 5th tiers, we're going to even skip talking about the 4th tiers. We do have the strongest tower in the game, the true Sun God. But just because you have the strongest tower in the game, you have to really keep in mind that you're spending like over $1 million to get this guy. And in a real game, that's never happening. So that's why it's tough for me to keep this guy any higher, even though, yes, best tower in the game, 100% best tower in the game. But still difficult to use properly, man. Like, we're not really using that guy. And I don't think that most people are trying to go late game. Most people are trying to earn medals and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Anti-Balloon, easily outclassed. And the Legend of the Night, easily outclassed. $200,000 for this guy. Buy a bunch of other 5th-tier towers. You're going to do way more damage with them. They're cool, don't get me wrong, but they're just not as useful as you'd want them to be. Yay! We're into B tier! So now we've got to talk about my B tier list. And we're starting off with the big fat Boomerang! That's the only reason he's in B tier, is because his name starts with a B. No, not really. I'm just messing with you guys. But I find him to be okay. You know, everything about him is just, yeah, it's good. It's okay. We like him. I mean, Glaive Ricochet pops balloons. More Glaives pops balloons. Glaive Lord pops a lot of balloons. All right, this guy, Blood Boomerang, pops some balloons. Turbocharge is actually pretty good at popping balloons. And Permacharge, he pops some freaking balloons. All right, down to the bottom here. We got Red Hot Rangs and Kylo Boomerang. They pop balloons. Moab Press pops Moab balloons. And the Moab Tom pops Moab balloons. So what does that mean for all of these upgrades? They all pop balloons. There's seriously none of them that are bad, none of them that are unuseful, but none of them that are just straight up dominating stuff, you know? It's a fair price for what you get kind of all around. And that's why Boomerangs are still going to be B tier. Everything's fair, everything's good. The main thing about snipers that's pretty awesome is that they have infinite range. So you never have to worry about that. Only issue is if you put them behind a wall or something like that, they won't have their infinite range. But having that infinite range is really where most of their popping power comes from. If they didn't have infinite range, and you had just a medium range or even a large range, they would be pretty weak. And that's kind of my minor issue with them, is that on really short maps, they're not that strong. It's got to be a long map for them to get their max popping power out of here. But as a 3rd tier, not very powerful, not that bad. It's actually not very good. Semi-automatic rifle's probably the worst 3rd tier out of the bunch. But when we finally start upgrading to these higher tiers, they start getting pretty decent, you know? Even the supply drop, we start making cash. Med Moabs, Stun and Moabs over here. Those are really cool upgrades. Honestly, cool upgrades. Crippin' Moab's kind of worthless. This Elite Sniper is surprisingly good. A lot of people have been liking this guy lately. And the Elite Defender is honestly one of the best towers in the game up until round 80. 80 plus, he's a little weak. Up until round 80, seriously, this guy is fantastic. And I highly recommend you get this guy with that shrapnel shot. But if you just kind of add all these guys up together, it's like everything's okay. You know, you have to get them up to 3rd tiers or 4th tiers to make them worthwhile. And popping down just a one random 1-0 sniper or 1-0-2 sniper, something like that, is pretty useful. So he's got a lot of weird scenarios where you can use this guy, and that infinite range is just something you have to keep in mind with this tower, and it helps out a lot. Alright, monkey yates! So first of all, we've got the fighter plane, pops Moabs. Alright, we've got the bomber race, pops balloons, and we've got the Devimist targeting, pops a little bit of a combo of all the 3. It's going to be very similar across the board for that. Pops more Moabs, pops more mobs and balloons now. And then we, you know, go to popping balloons with an ability, and popping balloons with an even bigger ability. These are pretty cool. I tend not to use them, but I understand why a lot of other people use them a lot. Ground Zeros and Tsar Bombas are expensive, but if you can just obliterate like round 98 or round 99 or something like that, I mean, that's pretty freaking awesome, you know? Just abilitizing and just destroying everything is pretty fantastic. All right, boop, gone. All right, and then we've got the Spectre and the Flying Fortress, which is just too expensive to actually be worthwhile here, and I don't usually get them all that often. So overall, we've got some real fun uses for these guys. And that's why they're still in my B tier, because I feel like they're fun, I think they're cool, and that infinite range thing always comes into play here, but none of them are just, like, dominating anything. None of them are great. They're just all good. Alright, Mortars are ranked one of the worst towers in the game by you guys. Seriously, the worst tower in the game? What? I don't know if I would agree with that, but Mortars are one of those weird towers where unless you're getting a high tier, you're really not doing much. If you just look at the bottom tier upgrades, very similar to a cannon. Worthless, 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 all worthless. Even these guys, kind of worthless. All right, until you get to these 4th tier upgrades. That's the first time that you actually get going here. And I shouldn't say worthless, but for the amount of money you're spending, you're usually better off getting something else. But when you finally get here, things start to change. All right, so the 4th tiers, we can get the big one, which pops crap tons of balloons. We've got the artillery battery, which pops even crappier tons of balloons, in my opinion, and pretty good against Moabs. And the bottom tier, which is shattering cells, which is surprisingly useful in a lot of chimps games, which is mainly getting rid of round 98's reinforced aspect over here. Every single one of those balloons goes from reinforced to non-reinforced, literally like doubling your popping power against these BFBs. That's how ridiculous this ends up over here. So all of these are actually pretty decent upgrades in the high tier, but because all those middle path upgrades, or like middle tier upgrades or low tier upgrades are bad, I can't really recommend them all that much. This is going to be a quick one for me. The Banana Farm is in B tier. It could go S tier. It could go D tier. It could go anywhere you feel like it. Banana Farms are fun and Banana Farms are cool, but they're not the only way to make money. All right? I find them to be fun, and I find them to be cool. That's why they're just going to chill here, right in the middle of the list, right in the middle of B tier. This is where they deserve to go. Next on our list, we've got the Ninja Monkey. And if we look at the totality of the Ninja Monkey, they're really weird. Like, really, really, really weird. Nothing about these guys is normal. All right, we've got one of the best towers in the game that we normally use here, which is a Blue Jitsu Ninja. This guy's great for early players to learn how to play the game. It's got only one weakness, leads, and even then, if you get an Alchemist next to him, that's gone. So, like, this guy doesn't have very many weaknesses at all, and that's why he's such a fun and usable tower in this game. When you start to go middle tier, it gets really weird, because unless you're building 20 ninjas, Shinobi Tactics is worthless, I guess. But Bloon Sabotage is going to be one of your best abilities in the game. For the price that you're spending, slowing down the balloons and doubling your popping power for even 15 seconds is fantastic. Bottom path, it gets even more interesting, because Flash Bomb is actually pretty bad, and Sticky Bombs is actually pretty bad. Even Master Bomber is pretty bad. So, the real way to use ninjas, and even Grandmaster and Grand Saboteur, are not that good. So the real way to use the ninjas, the only way to use the ninjas and make them actually powerful is, believe it or not, to Shinobi the crap out of all of them. So if you build 20 ninjas and you Shinobi the crap out of them, all of them are going to be shooting so fast, and if you get a 5th tier in the middle of all that, man, shooting many times faster than it already should, that's where the power comes from. So ninjas are still going to be in B tier just because they're so useful in the early game, but unless you're doing something crazy in the late game, they're not really doing much. Villages are going to be very similar to my Banana Farm thing. Yes, they're very useful, and I think they just got to be right in the middle of the pack here. They're not godlike towers. They're support towers, and they support pretty well. They do their job well, and every game I pretty much build a village. So, like, yeah, I mean, they're a good tower, and you pretty much need one every game. But you don't need, like, 5 of them, you don't need 10 of them, and you don't need to spam them up to 5th tier necessarily. Just some low-tier villages is usually more than enough. Alright, we're moving up in the world, boys and girls. We're talking about the Dart Monkey. Now, this is our first A-tier list monkey, which means these are towers that I would say are good. Alright, overall, they're very good towers. They're not always amazing in every single way, but they're fairly usable. if you gotta just look at all the upgrades here, there's really only 1 or 2 upgrades that I would say that you shouldn't use, and that's Super Monkey Fan Club and Plasma Monkey Fan Club. Those guys usually aren't that good. Not terrible, but aren't that good. Everything else is okay. Not to mention, the Triple Shot is one of the best popping power towers in the game, and believe it or not, the Juggernaut these days is actually really good against the balloons, especially with that quick shots. Get this guy and you're popping lots of balloons. And I think the Crossbow and the Sharpshooter are actually also very useful mid-game. Not to mention, the Crossbow Master is still one of the best late-game towers you can get here, because he's cheap, and still does a lot against literally every type of balloon that comes out against us, including the bad balloon, which is awesome. Tack Shooter could easily go in my S tier list, and I do have an S tier list, guys. This guy is fantastic. I love everything about him. I think he's really cool. I think the 3rd tiers are awesome. I think the 4th tiers are awesome. I think the 5th tiers are even more awesome. I love every single thing about these Tack Shooters, but I will mention that I still think they struggle a little bit more than I probably think they should. Yes, they're all awesome, but the main reason why they're awesome is that you get a 4th tier primary mentoring village with them, you give them the camo detection, and you give them the Alchemist all together. And that means we're requiring a lot of buffs to make these guys good. That doesn't mean they're bad in any way, shape, or form, but they require a lot of finesse, finagling, and weird stuff to make them as good as they actually should be here. So, I love my Tack Shooters, but, you know, by themselves, they're really not that good. It's really all the support that you're giving them that's making them so gosh darn good over here. To be honest with you guys, I could put these guys in my B tier list, but I feel like a lot of people would be upset with me because there's a lot of really interesting things you could do with heli pilots these days that it'd be hard to put them all the way down there. All right, first of all, they're fully mobile, completely around the map, controllable. You get pursuit, you get different options here, so you could do a lot with these guys. Not to mention the Razor Rotors has been one of the best upgrades recently for middle tier gameplay. Getting this guy with a hero and an Alchemist usually can make you survive up until around like 48 or 49 or something like that. That's pretty wild, all right? Really, really, really wild. For the amount of money you're spending on these guys, they're pretty solid. They got a lot of weird cases here. You know, Downdraft can send back reinforced ceramics back to the beginning, man. The Moab Shove can shove back Moab class balloons all the way up to Oh My Gods and stuff. Slowing them down even. That is awesome. And they're definitely different and versatile here, which is pretty cool. When you finally get up to the 5th tiers over here, that's where it gets even more interesting. Apache Prime is quite powerful. The Comanche Commander is still decently powerful. And the Special Operations has like a billion abilities, and believe it or not, this guy's actually not that bad. The little Marine sniper guy, he's okay. So I'm gonna put him at an A tier list, but I could put him a smidge lower. I could feel it. Let's talk about the newest addition to Bloons Tower Defense 6. We're talking about the Dartling gun. He's kind of cool in every single way. I mean, I like everything about him pretty much. You know, I love my laser shot, great for Moabs. I love my laser cannon, great for Moabs and balloons. Plasma accelerator actually got a huge buff recently. It's pretty cool. And, you know, faster barrel spin in the Hydra rocket pods here. Delicious! This guy's fantastic. And Rocket Storm with the Monkey Knowledge upgrade is crazy good. Even the bottom path is surprisingly fun. Every single upgrade is okay, up until Blue Area Denial System, and then we get fine again. So these 3rd tier and 4th tier Dartling guns are straight up phenomenal. They're good middle tier towers. You know, they still cost you that $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 to get up to these guys, and but I think they're totally worth it, and that's the reason why they're so good. Once you get to 5th tiers, they're cool. They're really, really cool. Ray of Doom is going to be your best balloon popping power tower in the game. Freaking mad, best Moab popping power tower in the game. And then the Balloon Exclusion Zone, the best in-betweener in the game. So when you combine all that together, Dartling guns are really good. I could put them in S tier, but I'm going to just leave them in A tier. I feel like that's a very fair place for them to be. This is a weird one for me. I feel like when I usually go for a lot of subs, I end up losing in weird things like chimps, alright? But I don't think subs are necessarily a chimps tower. Yes, they can be used in chimps, but a lot of Monkey Knowledge upgrades, specifically the Airburst Darts upgrade, is going to really help you out in non-chimps. Normally it splits into 3 with Monkey Knowledge, it can split into 4, adding an extra 25% of your popping power. That is quite a bit. On top of that, we've got a lot of cool upgrades. I mean, there's like really no upgrades that are like bad for this guy. I even like the Ballistics Missile. I like the First Strike. I like the Airburst Darts. I like triple guns. I like the armor-piercing darts. I love the Sub-Commander. But all of these guys, I don't really have a but. They're all good and they're all fun to use, man. I mean, they're a little bit expensive here. the Energizer is a little on the weak side here. But almost all of these upgrades have a use, you know? And that's pretty awesome. I guess my only real negative about the subs is that, again, you have to bow down to the water gods. Wherever they decided to put that water is where you have to put your submarines. And the great thing about subs, besides probably the plutonium reactor, is it usually doesn't matter much. This guy hit pretty much anywhere on the screen, you know? This guy hit pretty much anywhere on the screen. That weakness is pretty much gone. That's why subs gotta be up my A tier, babe. Oh, baby, we're getting down the nitty-gritty down here. We're talking about them spike factories. All right, spike factories by themselves are probably the most interesting tower in the game. They work different than pretty much every other tower. You're supposed to kind of just like put them in the back down here. Just let them slurp up the balloons that are going to try to sneak through. But spike factories work a little bit better nowadays. You can use them in different ways now if you want to. Even getting like a spike ball factory is in the middle of the map, or a spike mines in the middle of the map, kind of near the middle of the map, is not a bad idea. On top of that, if you can get the Moab Shredder to actually throw down spikes on top of Moab, freaking beautiful, dude. Spike Storm's amazing too. Bottom path is where it gets funky fresh, because no upgrade is good until you get the perma spike. But once you get that perma spike, you get real good. When you combine all of this together here, there's only a couple upgrades that really aren't that useful. Probably Super Mines is not that useful. Probably the low tier bottom paths are not that useful, but pretty much everything else is pretty awesome. And the cross paths are pretty cool too. You can always get the bigger stacks or the fast production. Usually fast production is better, but not necessarily. So do what you want with these guys. Just know that almost all of the upgrades are pretty good. So I'm sure you guys have guessed it by now. We've got to have an S tier list. What's got to be in here? The Alchemist, of course. Mainly, and I say mainly because this is not necessarily the way you have to do it, mainly for the Berserker Brew, the Stronger Stem, and the Perma Brew. These upgrades in particular are so useful throughout the entirety of the game that I could totally expect me to build more Alchemists than just about any other tower in the history of Bloons Tower Defense 6. They're just rock frickin' solid. Alright. Then you've got a super cool looking unstable concoction here. This is fantastic for late game, and you pretty much need it every game again. Wow, we're using multiple towers we need every single game? Yeah, that means they're really good. Once you get beyond that, these guys are probably a little on the useless side, let's be honest here. Alright, he's not good in every single way, but this totally makes up for it. And then, to top it all off, baby, we got the bottom path here, which makes you so much money. The only time this isn't going to be good is in chimps. Other than that, lead to gold makes you a ton of cash. Rubber to gold makes you tons of cash. And then the Bloon Master Alchemist sucks away all of your cash, believe it or not. But he's still one of those towers that, like, if you really want to do something cray-cray, this is the guy to go for, man. We could just insta-kill reinforced BFBs, insta-kill Zomigod class balloons in groups, insta-kill with nothing left afterwards. Besides a red balloon. Yes. That's what we're talking about here. And that's why the BMA is still kind of high up on my list here. He's pretty freaking good. Alright? Pretty freaking good. If I do say so myself. And that's why Alchemist is definitely top tier here, guys. Everything about him is just fan-frickin-tastic, alright? Seriously, fan-frickin-tastic. But believe it or not, that is not all. We've got one other tower in the S tier list, and this is going to finish off the video for you guys. We're talking about the Wizard Monkey. Again, I have to say it, I think this guy's carrying him quite a bit. We're talking about the Prince of Darkness. The Prince of Darkness is probably the strongest tower in the game these days. Get him with the God of Magic and Arcane Blast. It's going to work much better for you here. And he's going to pop so many balloons, it's going to be ridiculous, and he's usually going to kind of kill the balloon to the end of the map, which is exactly what you need. It's like a safety net that pops crap tons of balloons. This guy by himself will almost put him in S tier, but you got to talk about the totality of the tower. And the totality of the tower is, every single upgrade is good. Arcane Blast, Arcane Mastery, Arcane Spike, great upgrades! And then we can top it all off if we want to with an Archmage, which is one of the best DDT poppers in the game. Same thing with the middle path. They're more of a low tier upgrade, but Wall of Fire these days can solo around 49 for like 1,500 bucks. That's literally the craziest thing that I've ever seen in my entire life. 1,500 bucks to pop around 49, that's halfway through the entirety of the game. Ridiculous. With no hero, by the way. It has been done in a challenge. Crazy. Or we can still get Dragon's Breath and Summon Phoenix, which are not amazing, but still good. You know, there's nothing wrong with them. And the Wizard Lord Phoenix, which got a 3 times powerful buff that he currently is. Freaking ridiculous, dude! Every single thing about these wizards, I love. I love. I don't think there's a bad upgrade in the entire bunch here. They're all fantastic. They're all great. I could probably solo everything with these 3 combos of guys right here. So that's where we gotta end, guys. If you enjoyed this video, press that like button for me. I'd really appreciate that. Subscribe if you haven't. And of course, well, let's show you guys the entire list here, I guess. You know, let's do this. Whoop, 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 whoop. Let's get it going. Here we go, and there's the entire list. So we've got the Alchemist, the Wizard, the Dart, the Tack, the Heli, the Dartling, the Monkey Sub, and the Spike Factory in the good towers list. In the okay towers, we've got the Boomerang, Sniper, Ace, Mortar, Banana Farm, Ninja, Village, Bomb Shooter, Monkey Buccaneer, Ice Monkey, Druid, Engineer, and Super Monkey. And in the maybe not so good towers, we've got the Glue Gunner. But still okay. We've got the Glue Gunner here. So, again, if you guys enjoyed, press that like button, subscribe, and have a super duper delicious day.